Okay, so adding and subtracting algebraic fractions. First thing that you need to do, let's just look at, I'll just do it without algebra. So 2/3 plus, say, 1/5. So your first step is this, to find a common, sorry, I need the highlighter, to find a common denominator. To find a common denominator, that's the first thing. So if you look at the 3 and you look at the 5 and you go, all right, what do 3 and 5 go into? If you're unsure, just multiply them by each other. But you can see that if you look at this here, if you times that by 5, you'll get 15. And if you times this one by 3, you'll get 15. So the common denominator is 5 times 3, which is 15. So now what your next step is you need to multiply the bottom and the top by the same number. Okay, and then you should have the common denominator. So you've times this by 5, so you now have to times the top by 5. You've times the bottom, the 5, by 3, so you now have to times the top by 3. Then if you go and you simplify it, 2 times 5 on the top will give you 10. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 1 is 3 on the top. 5 times 3 is 15. And then the next step after that is to add the tops and you keep the same denominator. So if I add the tops, I have 10 and 3. 10 and 3, 10 plus 3 is 13. Okay, and then keep the same denominator. So what is the denominator? The denominator is 15. So don't add the denominator together. You keep the same number of parts because it's like having, 10, you've got 15 parts, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 parts, and you're going to add on there, you're going to have 10 of those. So you're going to have 10 of those. What we got? 6, 7, so 10 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you're going to have 3 more. And when you have 3 more, altogether you'll have 13 parts out of the whole 15 parts. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to do it with algebra in there. So if you look at these denominators here, you've got the 3 and you've got the 4. So what do 3 and 4 both go into so that we can get a common denominator here? So if you multiply this one by 4, you get 12, and this by 3, you get 12. Then that's doing that part. The second part, multiply the bottom and the top by the same number to get a common denominator. So we've multiplied the bottom here by 4, multiply the top by 4. We've multiplied the 4 by 3, so multiply the top by 3. So then when you add these up, let's do the top first. 2a times 4, so 2 times 4 is 8, so that will be 8a. 3 times 4 is 12. 5 times 3 is 15, so that'll be 15a. 4 times 3 is 12. 8a plus 15a is 23a. And it will remain over the same denominator, because what I just did there, just making sure we're all clear, we add the tops, because it says here, see, add the tops and keep the same denominator. So you have to keep the denominator. So I've kept the denominator was 12, and see the 12 stayed the same, and I've added the top, the 8a plus the 15a is 23a. Okay, so let's look at the next one. All right. Now, here's the thing. If you've got see how that's 5y and 3y? You just need to multiply that one by 3 and that one by 5, and you'll have the same thing on the denominator. There's no need to put a y there. Like, you don't have to make the denominator 15y squared. Because with these, both of them have one y contained in them. See how there's a y here and there's a y here. So you only need to count it once, okay? So you count the denominator with the y there, and if you just times that by 3, then you will get, as a denominator, you'll get 15y. And then 3 times 5 is 15y. Okay, now with this one here, you notice I've also made it subtraction. So I probably should change my rule a bit here. Instead of just having add or subtract, or instead of just having add the top and the bottom, I should really be putting add or subtract the tops and keep the denominator. Okay, so the only difference between adding and subtracting is that you subtract the tops instead of adding the tops when it's minus. Okay, so let's get back to what we're doing. So we've got the denominator, 5 3s are 15 and you keep your y. 3 5s are 15 and you keep your y. Then you look at the top, because the next step is multiply the bottom and the top by the same number. So you've got to times this one by 3 and this one by 5. It's important you do really good setting out. 6 times 3 is 18, so that's 18m. 2 times 5 is 10, so that's 10m. Okay, 18m minus 10m, that's the next step. You add or subtract. So you add or subtract the tops and you keep the denominator the same. So add or subtract, so this is subtract the top number. So 18m minus 10m is 8m. And you keep the denominator the same. So what is the denominator there? The denominator is 15. So you're going to keep the 15 on the bottom there. So that's going to be 15y. So I'm just going to give you one that's a little bit harder. It's got 3 different denominators. It's very similar to the other one. There is a common y there. So there's a common y in each of these. So you only need to count that y once. So the question is, what do 2, 5, we've got 2, 5 and 3. What do they all go into? Okay, so if we start off and we went 2 times 5, we'll get 10. But you can see 3 doesn't go into 10. So now, but if I get the 10 and I multiply it by 3, I will get 30. So if I make the common denominator here 30y, the common denominator is 30y, and you write that on the bottom, then we're kind of all good. Now what we need to do is we need to look at, what do I times this bottom by to get 30y? What do I times this by to get 30y? And what do I times the 3y by to get 30y? So that's a 2y. So if I times the 2y and I times it by 15, okay, that's really the other two. See, 5 and 3, 15. Then I will get 30, because 2 lots of 15 are 30. If you did 30 and you divide it by 2, you would get 15. And also, if you got 2 there, the thing you're timesing by will be the other two factors, like 5 times 3. Okay, so the same as if I have 5 there and I have 2 and 3, the number we're looking at is 2 times 3, which is 6. So you're looking at the second one, 5 times what gives you 30? 5 6s are 30. And that's really just the 2 and the 3 times together, which is the 6. And then I look at the 3. 3 times what gives you 30? And it's the same thing. If you've got 3, the other two factors are 2 and 5. 2 5s are 10. 3 times 10 is 30. You could also go 30 divided by 3 to figure that out, which is 10. That's another way. Okay, so next step. We've got our common denominator. We've looked at what's missing, what we times by. And then the next step is what we do to the bottom, we need to do to the top. So each of the numerators need to be times by what's on the bottom. So that means this one's times 6 and this one's times 10. Okay, so what is 7 15s? 7 10s are 70. 5 7s are 35. I think that's 105 m. Okay, and then we go 3 6s are 18, so that's 18m, and 4 10s are 40m. Okay, so the next step after this was to get the numerators and you add or subtract them depending on what sign there is. So 105 plus 18 plus 40. You could use your calculator to do this. 8 and 5 is 13. 4 and 1 is 5 plus 1 is 6. And then 1. So you get 163 and you got to keep your M. And remember you need to keep the same denominator. So the denominator is 30y. So the denominator will stay the same because that's just the number of parts that you've divided it up into. And that would be your answer. 163m on 30y.